This meeting is being recorded.
All right, welcome out to another episode of the Gridiron 64 podcast. It is presented by GT Sports. It's Wednesday evening, and of course, we're going to pre-record this again, and I'll upload it tonight or tomorrow morning. And today, or tonight, actually, we're going to talk about the 4A Division II Region 4 District 16. We're going to recap the 2022 season. There are 4 teams in this district, 3 from the Valley, 1 from South Texas. But because Bishop is part of one of the teams that we cover, we will be talking about the Port Isabel Tarpons, the Bishop Badgers, the Raymondville Bearkats, and the Grulla Gators. On the screen, you've got my partners here. You got TJ, Riddell, Riddell. TJ, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. Just drinking some sweet tea and wearing a Shiner box shirt. I'm ready to go.
There you go. And we haven't seen him in a while, but the other partner, our host here, co-host here, who joins us this evening to talk some football is Big T, Tony Pena. T, I'm glad to see you back, man. How you doing this evening?
Oh, good, man. Glad to be back. Sorry I've been out of the loop for so long, but I'm glad to be back.
Absolutely. And so the crew's back. And like I said, next week we'll go into the 3A. This will be the last 4A group that we talk about. Next week, it'll be the 3A Division 1. It'll be the Aransas Pass, Industrial, Edna, and all those teams. So next week, it'll be a little bit longer podcast because I think there's about 6 teams or so. And so you know how we get started here, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the district champions in this district where the Port Isabel Tarpons, they were 9-3, 2-1 in district play. The thing here, guys, is that all 4 teams make the playoffs, right? There's 4 slots, right? So all 4 of these teams go. So you can go like 0-10 and still make the playoffs. So I don't really like the way that's set up, but that's the way this group is set up. Port Isabel, a team that we all know here. They got a good rich tradition out there about getting into the playoffs. This team, like I said, it kind of seemed from what I'm looking at here, Tony and TJ, these teams kind of beat each other, right? Like they're 2-1 in district. If you look at the other ones, everybody kind of lost the game. So there's not one team that just kind of wipes everybody out. So TJ, I'll go to you first, man. Your thoughts on Port Isabel. Were there any surprises to you that Port Isabel actually won the district? And then give us some stats offensively and defensively of what they did in 2022. And who are some of the players that we need to be looking for in 2023?
Well, first of all, I'm very surprised they beat my Ingleside Mustangs in the first round. I personally think they cheated. That's just me. But no, in all seriousness, they played a very good Gerald team in the second round, but came up short, 35-21 in that matchup. But I wasn't surprised at all that they won district this year. I actually had them winning district this year. The more surprising team will be the next team that we'll be talking about, in my opinion, that where I had them. And for stats, we're going to be talking about, I'll go ahead and talk about offense. There wasn't a whole lot of passing for this team from what Max Streps put on here. The one thrower that was actually throwing passes was Pereira. If you like Army and Navy football, this is the team to watch out for. Port Isabel. But Pereira, he's a senior. He's going to be leaving. Look out for Smith, number 6 for the Tarpons next season as the starting quarterback. He threw 1 pass this season. One for one, 18 yards. But Pereira, he's leaving with 6 completions and 17 attempts, 154 passing yards. Not a whole lot, but he did throw 2 interceptions, so that's not very good right there. But they're not known to throw the ball over in Port Isabel. They're known to be that smash mouth. We're gonna run it down y'all's throats type of offense. And you can just see there's about 7 guys on this team that have went over 150 yards rushing. This freshman we need to watch out for. Ramos, number 21. He had 45 carries with 629 yards. That is 14 yards in carry right there, guys. And he averaged the game 78.6 yards a carry. with six touchdowns. His longest run was a 73-yard. Next up, Barrera. He is the starting quarterback, senior. He was the second leading rusher with 66 carries, 509 rushing yards, 7.7 yards per carry, and he had 7 touchdowns in this season, which he's going to be leaving, so they're going to miss him. And then you got LeBlanc, who's a junior, going to be a senior this coming up year, number 1. He's the third leading rusher with 468 rushing yards, 56 carries, and average 8.4 yards a carry with 3 touchdowns. And then you got Garcia, which we don't know if he's a freshman or even a senior because it doesn't show on here. Why, I don't know. But he had the most carries with 83 carries with 465 rushing yards, and he averaged out 5.6 yards a carry. That tells me he's the fullback of this offense. So, he averaged out 51.7 yards a game, and he had 8 touchdowns. So they would like to punch it in with this guy once they got into the red zone a lot. His longest run was a 49-yarder though. So I mean, kid's got endurance. Martinez, he's a senior. He had 63 carries, 384 yards rushing. He had 3 touchdowns, averaged 6.1 yards a carry, and his longest run was a 33-yarder, and he averaged 48 yards a game. Galvan, he had 24 carries, 246 rushing yards, averaged out 10.3 yards a carry. He'll be a senior next year. He had 1 touchdown, and then Sanchez, he's a sophomore with 21 carries, 176 yards total. Rushing, averaged out 8.4 yards a carry, 22 yards a game, and he had 1 touchdown. And he's a sophomore, so Fort Isabel is going to be tough, guys. I really do think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with again next season. Might be even better. But Ochoa, 18 carries, 96 yards, no touchdowns for him. He averaged out 5.3 yards a carry and 10.7 yards a game. And then Galvan, the sophomore, 5 carries, 36 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then all the way down to Valdez, who's a senior, 5 carries, 7 yards, 1 touchdown for him. Now listen to this stat, guys. 358 total carries with 2,850 yards rushing for this offense this entire season. 8 yards a pop every time they had the ball, or every play. 237.5 yards a game and 29 rushing touchdowns. So you already know this team is just nothing but running. They love to run the ball. Okay. And they only had 1 fumble this season and one fumble loss, but 0 fumbles is better than, or no fumbles is better than 1. So, and that was by Sanchez, who's a sophomore, going to be a junior next season. But now let's take a look at the defense with total tackles and solos and assists. Garcia leads the team in total tackles. He has 30 assists and 16 solo. Adds up to 46 total. Then you got Ochoa, who's a junior, 42 tackles, 36 assists, and 6 solo. So he loved to gang tackle. Valdez, number 42, he's a senior. He'll be leaving with 34 total tackles, 27 assists, 7 solo. Gonzalez, he's a senior. He'll be leaving with 33 total tackles, 25 assists, and 8 solo. They got a junior in Morales, number 3, 27 total tackles, 24 assists, and 3 solo tackles. Garza, freshman, 27 total tackles. Medina, junior, 26 total. You just got a lot of guys that love to gang tackle on this defense. They have all Tarpons just all at once. And then for 12 games, they have 19 total sacks for this defense. They are going to miss a couple, or they're going to miss 3 seniors next season with Clinton, who has 1.5 sacks with 4 hurries. Gonzalez, 1 sack, 0 hurries, and Valdez with 1 sack. But they're getting back Gonzalez, who's the leading sack leader with 6 sacks, and he's a sophomore, going to be a junior next season. He's number 66, so watch out for number 66 next season. Garcia, again, I don't know if he's or what classification he is, but 3.5 sacks this season in 9 games. So watch out for number 24 if he's still going to be there. Seibert, I hope I said that right and not butchered it. He had 3.5 sacks in 7 games. He's a junior, going to be back for his senior year. Morales, he had 1 sack in 8 games. He's coming back for his senior year. He's number 3. And that will be all for sacks. But now turnovers or interceptions. So Garcia is the leading defender with interceptions. Number 13, he's a sophomore, going to be a junior next season. This cat's a dog. He has 3 interceptions in 8 games. And then you got Medina right behind him. He's going to be a senior next year with 2 interceptions, and he's number 5. Garza, who's a freshman this season, going to be a sophomore next season. I think this kid's just going to be unbelievable for Isabel. He had 1 interception in 4 games, but expect Garza to start next season for the Tarpons. The one guy they're going to miss, though, is Garcia, number 14. He had 1 interception in 6 games. Sanchez, he's a sophomore, had 1 interception with a return of 24 yards. For the Tarpons, he's number 25, and he is going to be a junior next season. So they don't get the ball as much on defense, but they love contact, and they love to get in the backfield a lot. So
Well, it looks like they had. It looks like they got a lot of players coming back, right, from a 9.
oh yeah, they
Hey,
look
TJ,
like
who was the team that beat them in district?
Ooh, in district. Okay, all right.
I'm just curious because I see 2-1 here, but I don't have it on my screen. But they're 2-1. So somebody beat them in district. Was it Raymondville?
It was Raymondville,
What was the score? Does it have it there?
20-17.
Wow, that was a close one. And the only reason I ask is these 2 teams are going to battle. These teams are going to battle out again, right? So I mean, the fact
Yeah.
that Raymondville took them out, and if you look at them, they all beat each other. So it looks like it's pretty competitive. I mean, between now Grulla's really out, but I think in district between Raymondville, Bishop, and Port Isabel, it might be a dog fight next year when these guys go in district. So it's not set in stone, even though Port Isabel. It seems like they've got a lot of their guys coming back from a district championship team. It looks like these other 2 teams, we'll talk about them here in a minute, but it seems like they're going to be it's going to be pretty competitive. T, man, I'll turn it over to you, man. What first of all, before I go to T, who did you have Port Isabel win the district, TJ?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
Actually, I had them winning district. It's
Wow.
the next team that I doubted, and I'm apologizing to that fan base here in a little bit.
Tony, do you remember who you had winning this district?
Yeah, I believe it was Port Isabel as well. They were the toughest team in that area when they were in the same district of Rockport. They were the toughest team. I remember them. It was Rockport and then Ingleside and Port Isabel was a toss up, and I remember Port Isabel and Ingleside had a really good preseason that year. So going into the year where they played just against the Valley teams, I did see them being the top performers in that district.
Yeah, they look tough. They've got a rich tradition over there. I think 2 years ago, Tony, I think I remember talking to some coaches when they came to Rockport, and I think they got their because they came out 2 years ago. They played tough. They were surprising to me, right? When they came out and offensively, because we had a pretty darn good defense 2 years ago, right? And they came out and really they were making it a game until we were able to kind of spread out. But at the beginning, we were like, wait a minute, this offense is scoring some points. So we knew coming in, they were going to be a pretty good team. And I think if I remember correctly, they had brought back a coach from retirement. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I know there was a coach that they brought back that had been in Port Isabel for quite some time. I think he left or retired, came back. A lot of people were really hyped up that this coach was back. And if that is the way it happened, the way I said it, well, you're seeing the results if this coach is still there, right? Because 9-3 and with an opportunity to win another district title next year. So, man, we'll see what happens. We'll turn it over now to the next team in the district that was the Bishop Badgers, the one team that is from our coastal Bend area. They were 6-6, I believe, 2-1 in district play. T, I'll go to you first, man. Where did this team sit with you? And are you surprised that they were this high since you had Port Isabel at number one? Were you surprised? Was Bishop your second team? If not, were they surprising to you this year?
No, Raymondville was my second team, but I was really surprised with Bishop just because Bishop moved up a classification. I know Raymondville stayed at they were 4A Division 1, right? I mean Division 2, right? And I believe Bishop was 3A Division 1 the previous year. So they moved up to play in that district, and I was really impressed with some of the games that Bishop had this previous season. I mean, you look at beating Moody, and I had picked Moody to make the playoffs, and they beat Moody in the second game of the season pretty convincingly, 35-15. So I was pretty impressed by Bishop's performance. I think it was a big move for them, but to end the season moving up a classification, 6-6 and 2-1, tying everyone in the district, was pretty impressive to me.
Who did they beat, T? Who was the one team that were they're 2-1? Who beat them in district? Who's the one? Who was
Port
the one?
Isabel.
Port Isabel. Wow.
Port Isabel. Yeah, and it
Wow.
was 14-7.
Yeah,
14-7.
see, and
So
that's what I'm talking. It's so close, right? Like these teams are just it's going to be good because they're so competitive, right? Wow, it's amazing. So you have Port Isabel at 1, Bishop at 2. Remember, all these teams make the playoffs, right? But we just kind of want to see how far apart 1 and 2 are. And like you said, 6-6. I think if I'm not mistaken, T, they had some good games with Westoso this year. Is that correct? Are they the ones that knocked Westoso out of the playoffs this year?
let me see. I think they actually lost
they
to Westoso.
actually won 38-8.
They beat Westoso?
They beat
Bishop?
they beat Westoso, I believe, T, in the
Oh
in
yeah,
the
38-8 in the
But if you
playoffs. Yep.
look at the game prior to that, they played them twice this year. I think they played Westoso in the non-district. I think it was closer
Yes,
then.
and they lost, and that's what I was looking at. They lost to Westoso in non-district 40-38.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
So
Wow.
they met them up. They met up again with them in the playoffs and beat them 38-8. So they scored the same amount of points
But
that
they
they scored against Westoso the
Elijah
first
Huff.
time.
But
They
yeah.
held Elijah Huff in that offensive Westoso.
Do we
Then
know
they
if Huff played in that game? Because no one's been able to shut Elijah Huff down the way Bishop did that offense. I mean, all year long, they were going up against some damn good defenses, and I mean, Westoso's offense was scoring on everybody. So wow, that's it's really impressive for Bishop to be able to stop probably the best running back this past year, right, in the state of Texas. I mean, you could actually argue that point for Elijah Huff out of Westoso. And for them to just give him holding the 8 points if this kid played, wow, that's amazing. So we'll see what Bishop has coming into 2023. TJ, I'll turn it over to you now, man. Your thoughts? You want to talk a little bit about Bishop and then give us some stats on who's coming back and who do we got to look forward to next year?
All right, Bishop Badgers fans. I had y'all dead last in this district.
At the bottom of the barrels where you had this team.
Yes.
Wow.
And
No
I would like to
respect,
say-
Bishop. No respect. Wow.
And you know what? I would like to say I do apologize, Bishop Badgers fans. Y'all proved me wrong. And you know what? I I, I I'm a big man. I, I could take criticism as far as that, man. But no, in all seriousness, I was very impressed with the way Bishop played. And Pelagio, he is the senior quarterback for the Bishop Badgers. Uh, he didn't throw the ball very much. Uh, man, actually, they don't have very many stats on here. Probably fairly inaccurate because all I see is games played 3, 2, 3. So I could just tell you the roster right
There you
now
go. That's fine.
because of the fact that they don't have all the stats. So they got Emmanuel Pelagio, who's going to be leaving this coming up year, and also Jaden De La Garza, who's a corner. He's going to be leaving as well. And you got two juniors, number 3, Noah Hasso, number 4, TJ Ruiz. They're both juniors, so they're both coming back. So that's 2 out of 4 that's coming back. Then you got a sophomore wide receiver, Emmanuel's little brother, Matteo Pelagio. He's a sophomore. He's coming back. But they are going to lose their running back, strong safety, Jaden Longorio. He's going to be leaving. He's a senior this year. Nicholas Zimmerman, he's a junior, free safety. They'll have him back. Brendan Ray, he's a sophomore tight end, defensive end. He'll be coming back. Big kid, by the way, 6'3", 225. Then you got Jameson Sanchez, who's a fullback defensive tackle. He's a junior. He'll be coming back as a senior. 5'8", 220. That is a good size to be a fullback.
Mhm.
5'8", 220. That's a little engine, but he can barrel through you. Daniel Hickman, he's a senior this year. He'll be leaving. He's a wideout. Jace Wilson, he's a wide receiver, free safety. He'll be leaving as well this year. Jackson Benton, he's a sophomore running back linebacker. Damian Jimenez, he's a senior this year, senior running back, 5'11", 170. He'll be leaving. Samuel Range, running back, junior. He'll be coming back. Caden Griffith, he's a corner, junior, 5'10", 150. He'll be coming back. Pretty decent size for a corner. That's about what I was, 150 and 5'8", around that time. Chris Durrance, he's a sophomore. He'll be coming back as a junior. Rylan Ridden, he's a junior, coming back as a senior. Tyler Bowers, strong safety, sophomore. Andy Castillo, he's a senior this year, free safety. Braden Schroeder, he's a kicker. So this is our first actual kicker on a roster. He'll be coming back for his senior year. Hopefully we see some 50-yarders from that kid. Dimitri Riojas, middle linebacker. He's a sophomore, so we'll see him for the next 2 seasons. Ethan Hernandez, he's a senior leaving. Cole Garcia, he's a linebacker. Doesn't say if he's outside the middle, but he's a junior. JC Vera, we got our first lineman here, offensive lineman. He's a center, senior. He'll be leaving. Stephen Pascal, he's a guard. He'll be a senior next year. Ocean Limes, he's an offensive guard, defensive tackle. He's a senior. He'll be leaving. Riley Martinez, he's a tackle, sophomore, 6'3", 285. So that's pretty decent size for offensive tackle. Offensive lineman, defensive tackle. Senior Javen Garcia, he'll be leaving. Nose guard, 6 foot junior Damian Delgado, he'll be returning. Eric Owens, he was a wide receiver. He's a freshman this year. And last but not least, for seniors, number 89, Jacob Falcon. He is a defensive end, 5'11, 185. He'll be leaving. And then you got 2 more sophomores, Chase Garcia, which I think I already said his name earlier, but and Trey Ortega, sophomore. But Rigo Morales, yeah, he's going to be filling in quite a few holes, but I think he's going to really build this team back to where it's going to be. This is a very competitive team, and they have a lot of heart. You could tell by the way they played this season. I look forward to seeing the Bishop Badgers, and I will do better and not put the last place like I did last season.
Well, they're the one team, right, in this district that's from the coastal bend. But these outside of Grulla, Raymondville and Port Isabel, they've got a history of winning, right? Like their programs are really solid up there. So for Bishop, to get to this level next year or one up and win the district, I think they're going to have some competition. We'll see who they play in the non-district. But boy, as far as they did, well, we already know because they're going to play the same teams in year 2. But this district's going to be very competitive. I think we're going to pay a little bit closer attention this year because this is going to be interesting because the way I'm looking at it, man, outside of Grulla, the other 3 teams they could beat each other on any given night. So definitely going to be interesting to see this team, Bishop Badgers, the one team that we definitely follow here in the coastal bend area. The other 3 teams from the valley are going to be very interesting. You heard TJ talk about here. We didn't have any stats for them, but kind of went down the roster of who would be coming, how many of their kids were going to be graduating. So also talking about Port Isabel, man, Port Isabel is going to be tough to beat next year. So we'll see what Bishop does in 2023. We'll go to the next team. This is the 3rd place team in the district, the Raymondville Bearkats. They were at 4-6, 2-1 in district play. Tony, who did you have? Where did you have Raymondville last year? And your thoughts on this team and what possibly they could do in 2023?
I just want to say real quick, I just looked at my predictions, preseason predictions, and I did actually have Bishop at number 1, and I had Port Isabel at number 2, and I had Raymondville at number 3 with Grulla in last place. So Bishop almost did it. It was a close game. They were there. But Raymondville, I knew that Raymondville going into this past season, that they were gonna have some rebuilding. They were a decent team. They were competitive. They weren't great, but they were competitive. I remember Rockport played them. I remember going to that game, and their quarterback was most of the offense, and I knew he was graduating that year. So I knew that they were gonna have to figure some things out, and that's why I had picked him. I had picked them 3rd in the district, and I think that's where they ended, right? They ended in 3rd place. Is that correct?
Yeah, they were actually
So I
third
picked
place.
I picked them 3rd. So we'll see how they do this year. Let's see.
Looking at their schedule
They-
in 2022, did you have any surprises, any teams that maybe, because I remember what you listening to you talk, I remember watching that game and with Raymond, that quarterback being the workhorse, but were there anything, there's the 3rd place team, were there any teams that they played in the non-district, any teams that you can look at and say, man, this was surprising. This is something, they beat a team that I didn't think they could win.
Well, I'll say this: the playoff game that they played against Orange Grove, and they lost 35-21. I mean, that's 2 touchdowns, but that's a lot closer than I thought Raymondville would be with Orange Grove.
Yeah.
Sinton, they held Sinton to 24 points. I mean, it's 24-0, but Sinton was scoring a lot of points last season, so that one was pretty good. Really nothing convincing in the preseason
would
that
say-
shouts out anything spectacular. They beat Hidalgo, but they probably should have beat Hidalgo anyways.
I'd say the
So,
Rio Hondo win in the first game.
well, they beat Rio Hondo the previous year as well. When they
That's
were in the
true.
district with
Yeah.
Rockport, Rio Hondo, and shoot, don't remember who else, but Port Isabel.
Yeah, there was
They had beat Rio Hondo then, so it wasn't
I-
surprising that they beat Rio Hondo in the
So
preseason.
it seems because it seems like right now, right? We got one more team after this to talk about, but it seems like Port Isabel from the Valley. It seems early on, right? Like that's a team that's destined to compete for this district title again and go far because but Raymondville still looks like the reason I was asking is because I wanted to see early on. We still got some time, right? But I wanted to get your thoughts on what you guys thought where Raymondville will fare. They were third. We've already talked about Bishop and Port Isabel. Do you guys, from what you're hearing now, do you think that you can see T Raymondville possibly going to a 2-1? You had them in third place early on. Now, I'm not asking for a prediction, but do you think this team could creep up to 2-1 against Bishop or Port Isabel?
Well, I'm looking at their stats right now, and it looks like they got another senior to be the workhorse this previous season. Guterres, he threw for 854 and rushed the leading rusher on the team with 574. So again, you go from one senior 2 years ago to a senior this previous year, and now they're gonna have to figure it out again. So I think it's gonna be tough for Raymondville to try to compete with those two teams because as TJ said, Bishop had a pretty good young team coming back, and so did Port Isabel. I mean, they got to figure out the quarterback situation in Port Isabel, but he didn't throw the ball a lot, so they're okay there. They had several guys rush over 400 and 500 yards for the season, so I think Port Isabel is going to be holding pretty strong, and I think Bishop will be a contender. I think Rio Hondo is going to be a little bit tougher to come back in just one season to compete with those two teams.
Yeah.
TJ, I'll go to you, man. Where did you have Raymondville? And any surprises? And do you think this team could possibly creep up to 1 or 2? Because I don't see it. I'm with T, man. I think this team's going to sit again
I
at
don't
third.
see it either. I did have them at 2, but seeing nothing but seniors on that team.
Wow.
It's it's gonna be quite a rebuild season for
And look,
Raymondville.
guys, before you go, I'm sorry, T, but Tony and TJ, I'll remind you. A couple of years ago, when I thought that Rockport could see him in the third round, again, when I talked to people, but they ended up losing, and I think we ended up playing another. I can't remember who we played. Navarro, I think, is who beat us in the third
Yeah.
round, San Antonio. But that year, I thought we were going to play Raymondville, and again, I remember that year. This was like in 2018, T. And I remember that again, it was one guy. They said it was guys that saw Raymondville. It's a one-man show. So it seems like, and I don't know Raymondville, so I don't want to say anything. I've really never seen them outside of when we played them. But it seems like in the last couple of years, when we talk about them, they got one guy, one workhorse. I mean, they got a team, but it's one guy that you depend on to do everything for you. And that's usually difficult, man. It's hard to beat a good team with one guy, right? You got to have 11 guys, got to have a good defense. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It appears from what we're talking about, again, it's one guy. Next year, they're going to have to find that one guy again. So that if that's the approach, one guy or workhorse, it's going to be tough for them to beat teams like Bishop and Port Isabel. I would ask you this question, TJ, before I go to you. Who beat Raymondville? I mean, who did Raymondville beat? I'm sorry, they have 2 wins in district. They beat Grulla. Who's the other team?
They actually beat Port Isabel
Bishop.
and
They beat Port Isabel.
Bishop actually beat them, but
Who did Raymondville beat?
Raymondville?
Raymondville beat Grulla and they beat somebody else.
Port Isabel
Wow, what was the score?
20-17.
Wow, this is what I'm talking to you guys, right? Like Raymondville. So, I mean, is it out of the ordinary that Raymondville? What was the score between Raymondville and Bishop, guys?
30-12.
30-12.
Wow.
Bishop won.
Wow, I'm telling you, man.
So-
This is yeah. Wow, this is crazy. Raymondville could, you never know. I mean, look, they beat the district champs, man, and it's been very competitive. I love competition. TJ, I'll throw it over to you, man. Stats, you got any stats for us?
Well,
Who's coming back for Raymondville? You said there were a lot of seniors, right?
Mm-hmm.
the question is who's coming back for Raymondville? Yes.
Wow.
But I will say this, they do have a solid junior, Serta. He did have 12 carries and 50 yards. Don't see any touchdowns for him, but they have a yeah. I mean, it looked like they started all their seniors. To be honest.
Wow. Is there anybody from an underclassman, guys, that shines light, say, okay, this is gonna be a bright spot for them? Are they just completely, how many seniors are actually graduating from the team?
Gosh, you'd have to go on there and count. I counted 15 on defense.
Oh wow. Wow.
15 on defense.
Wow. Wow. They're high in the high 20s, if not early 30s, right? Wow. That's just gonna be tough, guys, for them to come back and compete when you lose this many seniors and you don't have any underclassmen, TJ? There's no underclassmen that kind
Well,
of
I do see Serta, who had 12 carries and 50 yards, and then Gonzalez, who's a sophomore, number 32, 10 carries and 35 yards. But if I look on the receiving, uh, Barnhart, who's number 2, 5 receptions, 60 yards. I mean, Robles was the only one that scored a receiving touchdown, and he had 11 alone. So there goes your main target, and there goes your starting quarterback. There goes your starting uh running back. I mean, at the end of the day, offensively, defensively, you're gonna lose a lot here. But I will say this: Almeida, he's coming back. He's honestly, I would say he's the leading tackler in underclassmen, because I don't know if Torres or Oviedo is leaving yet. Um, but he's well balanced as a solo tackler and a gang tackler with 23 solo and 26 assists.
wow.
Then you got Gutierrez, who's number 10. He's a sophomore, had 7 solo and 23 assists with 30 total tackles. Then we go down to the sacks list. I mean, they don't have the classifications for some of these guys, but Oviedo, Torres, and Garza. Oviedo had 5 sacks in 10 games with 3 hurries. Torres had 4 hurries and 3 sacks, and Garza had 0 hurries but 3 sacks. I don't know if they're I don't know what their classifications are, but yeah. Interceptions wise, yeah, they're losing their top 2 defensive backs, Gutierrez and Rios. So
Well, it doesn't sound too bright for me that this team could possibly
No.
take 2 or 1 when
No,
you're losing
like,
that many seniors, right?
this
No.
is this is like this is like losing a lot. So you're gonna have to deal with an overhaul of new, fresh faces that haven't had that varsity experience.
Yeah.
It looks like to me that these this team was just full of seniors, and I don't know if they are prepping the fresh crop just to have them look over the seniors, or I don't know. There are some cases where coaches like to start their seniors over their underclassmen because it's a maturity level thing. It's rare nowadays because you got all these underclassmen that are skilled, but I don't know, man. This is strange. I this is probably the most seniors I've ever seen uh leave a team, you know. And we've seen quite a few leave and then teams restock, like Sinton. They lose a lot of guys, but they know how to restock.
Well, sit,
Raymondville, Raymondville though, I don't know, man. This is a tough call right here.
listen, my gut instinct right now in early 2023, which will probably change when we get back in the summer, make our predictions right before the season.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think this team is not going to hit 1 or 2. And T, I'll ask you this. Tell me about Grulla, man. Could Grulla jump up and possibly how many players do they got coming back? Do you know, TJ? Do you know could Grulla possibly get to the number 3 spot? Because this team was the 4th place team. They were 1-9. They won 1 game. They did not win a district game. Can you guys tell me who's the one team that Grulla beat?
They actually beat
Lopez, Brownsville
Lopez
Lopez.
over in Brownsville, and they won
Wow.
by 7.
Wow. So T, going back to this, what you're looking at Grulla, right? I don't know if they have any stats or not, but what's your take on this? I mean, a 1-9
They
team.
don't have-
TJ and I talked last week about a team that had been struggling here in the Coastal Bend area in Robstown, but TJ feels that Robstown, with a lot of their players coming back and winning some games in the non-district, even though they got wiped out in district, he feels like this team, Robstown, is going to be a little scary. That people better come out and play because they could beat you. Do you see any of this Grulla like Robstown maybe, where possibly they could do better than 1-9? I mean, you can't go any lower, I don't think, just climbing up. Do you see anything from Grulla that you would say, hey, the stats look okay? Any bright spot for this team, or will this team sit at last place again next year?
Well, one thing I'll say about Raymondville and Grulla is they're both going to make the playoffs. I'll say
That's
that.
true.
That's
Yeah.
my preseason,
Yeah.
my pre-prediction.
Hey, that's true. That's true, man. That's true. They're gonna be there no matter what happens. That's true. Well, hey,
Hey, there's some teams that can't say that they
I
made
know,
the playoffs last
know,
year. You know,
I know.
Rockport being one of them. So,
Yeah.
hey,
Who,
Grulla was there.
who did they lose to in the playoffs, and how bad did they lose? Because you're playing the first
Oh,
place
they
team
lost
from.
to Sinton 49 to
They
7.
lost to
Yeah.
Sinton.
Wow. Yeah. See, and I mean, yeah, you're right, Grulla. I mean, they're gonna make the playoffs. That's one thing for sure that's gonna happen next year, no matter where they land.
Yeah.
Hey, TJ, well, Tony, I'll ask you, what does that do for a program like Grulla? When you know you're going to make the, I mean, how do you get better when you're going to, because I don't like this, and we talked about this, right? I don't like this. Everybody makes the playoffs. I mean, 1-9, you make the playoffs. Just to me, T, it takes the flavor. I'm just like, man, 1-9. And if I was playing for a football team or a basketball team, I'll say football team, right? And we were 1-9, and I was on a team, T, I don't know if I'd want to go play in a playoff game against the other district's powerhouse. What's your thoughts, T, on getting a district like this where all 4 teams are going to make it no matter what? Is there any incentive to try any harder? Because you're going to make the playoffs. Any of the goals to make the playoffs, right? What's your thoughts, T, on this thing, man? Where all teams, all teams.
I feel just like I used to say about Robstown. I don't think any player signs up to show up to practice every day to expect to lose. I highly doubt that that's what's going on there. I think they want to win, and if you have a season where you at least have, if you hit 500, I mean that's a win for that school, for that program. And I think that's something that Grulla is capable of. I don't know if they're going to go with the same preseason they did last year. But as far as district play, I do still see them last. Let me see. I don't think they had a close game. Well, they had a close game against Raymondville, 27-14, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's about as close as you get besides their win over Lopez.
So with Raymondville reloading, as much as they are, I mean, it's possible they jump up to number 3. But I don't see them at the number 1 or number 2 spot.
No.
I just think they're too far away with that. I was looking at their roster for all the guys that they do have listed. Most of them are 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", and 5'10". Like they're some
No big
little
one.
guys. You know what I mean? That's tough when
Yeah.
you show up with a whole bunch of 5'6" guys on your team, and you look across the field and everyone's 5'10", 6'2", 6'3". It's tough. It's tough. Size matters in a game like football.
It
Yeah,
does. And
sure.
TJ, I'll go to you next. What does Grulla got coming back? Anything? I mean, they had a 1-9 overall season record, but what bright spot? Was this a senior ball club? Did they have a lot of young guys playing that they're going to be able to come back next year in 2023?
Well, good news is they don't have nearly as enough players that are leaving as Raymondville. That's the only good news I have. The last time Grulla had a winning season, and I'm talking about over 500. Was in 2016.
Wow.
7-5, 4-0 in district. After that, let's take a look down memory lane, shall we? In 2017, they were 5-6. 2018, they were 3-8, just barely made it to playoffs. 2019, 2020, they were 4-7, 1-3 in district. Still made it in playoffs, third. 2021, they were fourth in district with a 1-4 record during COVID season and a 1-3 district record. 2021, 2022, they were 4-5. So they were getting close to that 500 mark. And I don't know what happened, injuries or whatnot, but they went downhill after that. So
That's a long
it,
time to not be at 500, man.
yeah,
That's a long time. That's to not even be
yeah,
able to
that,
hit the 500, and wow. I tell you guys, I don't think Grulla's gonna really. I don't even think they'll pass Raymondville next year. I just don't see that, especially with what you're saying. The height, the 5'6". Especially in football, man, weight and height matters, right? So I don't know, guys. Early on, I'm going to say Grulla's probably going to end up in the fourth place again. You're probably going to look at three teams that are going to battle it out for the district championship, which will be Bishop, Raymondville, Port Isabel, and with Raymondville coming back with a lot of young guys, it's probably going to be a between Bishop and Port Isabel. But again, you look at
yeah,
they've all lost a district game. I mean, there was no
yeah,
one that really went undefeated in district. So even a team like Raymondville, who was able to beat the district champs, you never know what can happen. So this district's going to be very, very interesting next year. Definitely be paying attention to it. And we'll see, what happens. So it was only four teams in this 4A Division 2 District 15, right in Region 4. And we'll continue to monitor this or watch it and talk about it next year on the Gridiron 64 in 2023. So that was going to be a short podcast because there was only four teams. So I wanted to talk about something else before we called it a night tonight. And of course, myself, I've been doing the Gridiron for a while here. I have another podcast called the Pirates Cove. And we talk a lot about Rockport-Fulton Pirate sports. But here on the Gridiron, we also cover a lot of the schools. And one of the things that happened yesterday was in my hometown here, our head coach, Jay Seibert, is going to be leaving us after 9 years and heading over to Sweeny. So I'll say that Sweeney's going to get a coach that can definitely pick up a program. He did that for us here in Rockport. A guy that can communicate, a coach that can communicate with his players, an offensive minded coach. I saw a lot of great things. I mean, we made the playoffs 8 out of the 9 years, going into the third round and real close, guys, from going in. So what Jay Seibert did for Rockport-Fulton to me was incredible. I don't think I've ever seen any coach do that and sustain a 8-year playoff run with a lot of success. And I think a coach that just knows, can just kind of turn things, according to what he has. He can adjust the offense here and there according to the talent that he's got every year. He was able to do that a lot of times. Not the biggest guys in the backfield. I saw him do a lot with not a strong arm at the quarterback position, but still found ways to win ball games, stay in games, and get us in the playoffs. So for me, guys, it's a big loss, and especially because I'm from Rockport and I follow football a lot. It's hard. I didn't want to see Jay Seibert, Ace. Obviously, that's another tremendous loss for a football team and the whole Seibert family. Because if you ever went to a football game, you saw the whole family out there, man, and they were always cheering. So it's going to be sad to kind of see Coach Seibert leave Rockport. But on the other hand, I wish him all the luck heading over to Sweeny. Here on the Gridiron, we'll continue to watch what they do out there with Ace. We'll continue to watch Ace and see how well he does there, hopefully, and coach. So we'll continue here on the Gridiron to follow them up there. But definitely, it's a big loss for Rockport. So Tony, I'll go to you first. I mean, you watch football. Your boy, my boy, both played under Jay Seibert. So your thoughts, man? I just kind of want to talk what's your thoughts when you heard that Jay
Mm.
was leaving Rockport?
Yeah. I think, and I've never been a coach or athletic director, but I think, the moves that he makes, uh, I'm sure it wasn't an instantaneous decision. I'm sure he thought about it. He talked to his family about it, and if he made the decision to do it, it's probably the best thing for his family. Kudos to him, kudos to Sweeny. They are getting a very good coach. I was looking at their season last year. They went 1-9. So I think someone like Coach Seibert is definitely what they need to turn that program around. But you're right. You don't just lose a Cyber, you lose Ace. His daughter was a really good athlete as well. His wife and his family, they were there cheering on the boys, every Friday night, and we lose all of that. But hats off to Coach Seibert for the seasons that he had here in Rockport, and I just wish him the best of luck, and in the future, wherever he goes. And same thing for Ace. I hope Ace has a great senior year, and really goes out and shows what he can do.
Yeah, and like I said, here on the Gridiron, we're gonna continue to cover Sweeney. I added them to our list next year to talk
Mm.
about them here, to follow Ace and his stats, and wish the whole family much success over there. Like I said, it's you got a coach that can build your program up. If you're struggling, like we were, he came in here and really built our program up. TJ, I'll turn it over to you. I know you're not from Rockport, but we talk a lot about Rockport here on the Gridiron. You've been a part of the Pirates Co also, where we talk. So, your thoughts on when you heard, because I know you heard it through our group chat. I saw it when they posted it up there that Jay was leaving. So, when you heard the news, what were your thoughts?
Well, I was actually really surprised. First of all, I wasn't as surprised with Hunter Hamrick going to Rockdale because he has ties with Rockdale. When I heard that Jay Seibert was going to Sweeny, I was very shocked, like completely shocked. But he has a really good resume. Jay Seibert does. Uh, as we all know, he took the job back in 2014. Led Rockport to the third round 3 times in the span of 9 seasons. And I mean, with 109 total games, he compiled a 65-41 record, which is really good down here. So he has a winning record down here. Last season was an off season, uh, but listen, he coached really well up in Troy, Texas, where my cousins live. He compiled a really good record over there. I think, I want to say they were state ranked at one point when he was coaching up in Troy, and he moves down to Rockport to build this program up, and he did it in such a way that Rockport hasn't seen this much success in quite some time, probably since Dak Gwynn days, if you guys remember that.
Mhm.
But I gotta say, Jay Seibert is a hell of a coach, and he's got a really good, talented quarterback of a son. Uh, I wish them the best of luck, especially being up there in Sweeny country, because there's a lot of competition up there uh, in that district with Sweeny. Uh, looking at Sweeny right now, I looked at him the other day, and yeah, they went 1-9. They lost pretty bad to Bay City. Then Van Fleck, they lost 34-21. They did beat Hempstead 44-7, but after that, they got shut out by Needville, lost to Wharton in district. So you're gonna have Wharton in your district, Lamar in your district, West Columbia Columbia in your district, Brookshire Royal, Sealy, and Belleville. that's a tough district right there. I don't think that'll deter anything from Jay Seibert. He's been in tough districts before, like I said, with Troy, where they had to play against the McGregor Bulldogs when McGregor was a powerhouse back in the day in the early 2000s. Um, Down here in Rockport, where he had to face Sinton, he had to face Port Lavaca, all these surrounding teams here, So, I mean, he has a really good reputation of building programs up. I mean, with Sweeny, it might take a couple of baby steps, but I think they'll be heading in the right direction before too long with Jay Seibert being there. So I really enjoyed watching. Uh, I enjoyed playing against Rockport when we played my senior year. That was his first season, and I I got my one win over him. I'm 1-0 against Jay Seibert, but no, he he is a awesome coach, and for the Cyber family, and my sister, she has Miss Seibert's class. She's deeply gonna Miss Seibert a lot. So yeah, for the Cyber family, we're gonna miss you guys, and keep in we'll keep in touch on Sweeny this coming up year. I think this is gonna be a really good year to watch Sweeny, especially with Jay Seibert being there and Ace Seibert possibly the starting quarterback, if not the starting quarterback over there for Sweeny. I think with Sweeny being 1-9, this is going to help them out a lot.
Well, and then,
So,
here's the deal, too, if, when you see that family, I mean, and Tony, because, we follow the Rockport groups, right? Like you would see the brothers, Jay's brothers, his mom on the Pirates call. I mean, it's like, it's truly a family. Like, when Jay came here to coach, like the whole Cyber family became Pirate fans, right? Like you see him in the stands, and you see all of that, and being part of the Pirate family was great for 9 years. And then I think the biggest impact, Tony and TJ, that I remember, because my son was a junior getting into that Hurricane Harvey when it was devastated here, and we didn't know there was going to be no school, and my kids had to go. I had a daughter and my son, and they got to go to Portland, and then my son's like, well, we got to wait, and I said, there's going to be no season, son. You can't even go to school. We got to enroll you. A lot of the kids are going to GP. And then I get a call and said, they're going to have a football season, so he's going to play. And I was, what do you mean there's going to be a foot? They're not even going to school here. How is that even possible? And just what Coach Seibert did to get, and from a fan just watching, right, as a parent who had a son that played on that football team, just the stuff that he had to go through with no electricity, with nothing, not even going to school, trying to get those kids to come all back and play for you. And then the way the kids responded, they wanted to play for him. They wanted to come back, and they didn't care if they won a game, but they wanted to come back. And my son telling me, hey, look, if we got 11 players, we're playing. And then he gets this team together, and they have a season, and then he make it to the playoffs, guys. He made it to the playoffs and won the playoff. He got to the second round. It was just amazing under the circumstances. I don't think there would have been any other coach possibly that could have got it done. But what it told me was how much he fought for those kids. Like he fought for those kids. He knew that those kids needed some type of normalcy under the situation, and he went out and battled with everybody to make sure, and to get his coaches to come in. I mean, that's a leader to me, right? And we were just so blessed. And I'll always remember what he did that year for Rockport, for not only for the football team, but the volleyball team played as well. Just under the circumstances, I mean, it was the right time to have that coach here for Rockport. So it's just that and a lot of other things, man. It was great the 9 years that we had this coach here, and definitely going to be missed. But like Tony said, man, you got to make decisions based on your family. The friendships will always be here, but you got to do what's best for your family. And at this moment, obviously, you put a lot of thought into it, but that was the best situation. Coaches come and go all the time. Moving forward now, Tony, I have to tell you, man, what's coming up for Rockport? Where does that? And TJ, he's part of it, right? But you and I are from Rockport. we're diehard Pirate fans. Where do we go from here, T? What do you think? They got to get a coach? Is this something that maybe we can hire within? Do you think there'll be another coach that'll come out, or what do you see happening here in the next month?
Well, I don't know what that will look like. What I will say is that for Rockport, you take Ace out of the equation, and you start thinking about who's going to fill that position. They lost a lot of seniors 2 years ago to this season that they just played. They lost quite a bit of seniors. And then this year they'll lose more seniors, so it's going to be tough. They had a already young team this previous season, and they're going to have a young team again this coming season. So it's going to be definitely kind of like a blank slate, if I will say, for whoever comes in. Especially if they're not already on the coaching staff. I think if they're on the coaching staff, I think they inherit a lot of what Jay did, and run with some of that. But I think if you get somebody else new, you already got a young team who spent 1 year on varsity, and then you got to change it up. I think that's going to be tough. I think there's going to be a curve there, learning curve for some of those new guys. And a really, 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 really tough district. I mean, we want to talk about tough districts. This is a tough district they got to play in next season.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be tough. I think that they got some guys on the team, on the coaching staff, that are capable of just taking over where he left off. I just don't know what's in the works for some of those guys. I've heard some rumors, but I don't want to blurt them out because I don't know if they're true or not. But I've heard some rumors about possibly some other ones leaving, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, just because it's just a rumor. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but it's gonna be tough for Rockport next year, losing somebody like Jay and Ace. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, man. But here on the Gridiron, like I said, we're going to continue to we cover Rockport. I mean, I've got the other Pirates Cove podcast, which those guys next week will be coming on as well, and we'll be talking more with the Pirates Cove crew about Jay leaving, and I know they've got their thoughts on the impact that we had. We had a lot of fun for 9 years, man, watching Rockport get into the playoffs, and just exciting, right? You love football. If your team is winning, getting into deep round of the playoffs, man, that's always exciting when you're playing football in December. And we got a chance to see what that felt like. So yeah, absolutely, we'll continue to cover that next week. Like I said, we'll have more talks on Coach Seibert on the Pirates Cove podcast. You can tune in that, just kind of get into the Pirates Cove Facebook page, and I'll let you know date and time that Pirates crew will get together and talk a little bit more about this. Well, guys, this concludes the podcast. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next week, I'll get with Tony and TJC when they're available, and we'll be talking about the 3A Division One. Then we'll be talking about Edna Industrial. I think it's Goliad, Aransas Pass, London. So it's going to be about 6-7 teams. So it might be a little longer. The podcast might start a little earlier, but I'll let you guys know the date and time once the guys tell me what day they're free, so we can all come back and break and recap that district down. That's going to be a real exciting district, and I can't wait to talk about that next week. But here on the Gridiron, I'll give these guys the final word. TJ, I'll go to you first before I go to Tony. Man, anything you want to add before we call it a night?
Well, I just got one thing to add. Tomorrow I'll be doing my Super Bowl prediction on YouTube on the Pigskin Mafia podcast. Tune in at 6:30 or 7 tomorrow, or whenever this video comes out. Tune in to the PMP and know who I'm going to pick. I think Gabriel got a little hint, but I don't think he actually knows who I got. But yes, it is Super Bowl weekend. Stay safe. Drink responsibly. I'm talking about apple juice. Drink apple juice responsibly. So, and take care of your loved ones, and go Cowboys.
There you go. T, I'll turn it over to you, man. Any final thoughts here on the Gridiron before we say goodnight?
No, I just want to say glad to be back. I think it was a good show. Glad we got to talk some 4A football and got to comment on Jay and wish him luck. But yeah, like TJ said, this Sunday the Super Bowl is the last football game of the season, the last one. So I can't wait to watch it. It didn't turn out how I wanted to, as far as who's in there, but it's still, like I said, if you love football, it's the last game. Got to watch it.
So who do you got, Tony? Have you made a decision who you're going for? I mean, but look, because
Well,
both quarterbacks are from Texas, right?
Yeah. So it goes like this. I'm a Texas fan. I'm a Dallas fan. And if you're a Dallas fan, you'll never say, I hope the 49ers win. When the 49ers played the Eagles, you heard me say, I hope the 49ers win. And now that the Eagles won, I know you'll never, ever hear me say, I hope the Eagles win. So I'm going to go for Mahomes, man. I hope Mahomes does it.
TJ doesn't know. TJ and I were talking before we went, to starting to record this podcast. And I think I know who we should go because he made the case, but he's having a difficult time, I think, or he's still trying to get an edge. And so tune into his podcast tomorrow evening and you'll be able to see who he picks. Listen, on paper as a podcaster, right, I have to go with who I think is actually going to win. So I'm like UT. I want Kansas City to win. But on my podcast, I put Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is going to be tough. The defense is really tough. Jalen Hurts is really good. I didn't know how good Patrick Mahomes, how healthy. I know how good he is, but I think it's going to be a good Super Bowl. I hope it's very competitive. But yeah, that defense, Philadelphia's defense is just tough. But my heart's going with KC and Mahomes. But on paper, man, and I had to pick Philadelphia simply because as a podcaster, I thought that's the team. I had to be honest with who I thought was going to win. But my heart's going KC, buddy. So definitely, man, enjoy the Super Bowl, guys. Next week, I'll send you guys a text on the group and you guys just let me know when you're available. Hopefully we can all get together on one day in the early afternoon or evening. We'll all get together and then I'll set it up for next week as we talk 3A Division 1. I think it's District 15, which will be the Aransas, London, Industrial. Now that's going to be a really good one to talk about. So until next week, guys, thank you very much for coming on, man. You guys have a great night. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll see each other next week. Until then, good night, brothers.
Good night. Bang.